you have read a number of books in your lifetime. Favorite childhood book that you remember reading to yourself?
As a child.
Yeah, not to our
Not
childs.
true. Okay, right.
Childs being plural.
I think the easy answer always has been the Anne Green Gables series, but that was more like
And with a B.
E.
Yep.
That was probably more like third grade though, not like little kid.
I was still on Tom Goes Up the Hill in third grade.
I think you sell yourself short.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Do you have any favorite books you remember reading to our kids?
I think Sandra Boynton books are the best because
Yeah.
you could kind of sing them, rhyme them.
Yeah. Bebo.
Yeah, I feel like she was like spoken word before spoken word,
Oh,
kind of.
maybe.
Maybe not. I'm getting it.
I
turned
think my
around.
favorite, there was the Hippopotamus book, which is different than what the Bebo one. There's also Skippy John Jones. I leveled
Keep
up.
people beat. Yeah.
Welcome to the Something Different podcast. I'm joined by my best friend, Jenny. How are you?
I'm great.
This is so fun.
Very fun.
We talk a lot,
Yes.
all the time. I think I have the gift of gab, and then you tolerate it, and then you join me. And here we are celebrating 22
Well done.
22 years of marriage just a couple days ago. And so the idea was, what if we just sat down and talked about marriage? And I think this is a topic that creates some hurt, some confusion, but overall intrigue. Like I have noticed many couples are like, can you help? I want it to go good. And so I thought we could just talk about things we wish we knew, things we've learned in the last 22 years. And so before we get to that, let's talk about the honeymoon. All right. This is for me something I was very much looking forward to. Very much. Oh, this is that podcast. Yes. And I wanted to pick one of the most romantic destinations I knew. And so we went to where?
Branson, Missouri.
Branson, Missouri. It was epic. We played some shuffleboard
Yep.
with some other people, sat through some timeshares.
We were the youngest people.
We
on
were the
shuffleboard.
youngest people,
We were actually the youngest people there.
like
Yeah.
in the state, maybe. It was crazy. Do you remember the divine appointment of us going to see the Neil Diamond impersonator? What was his name?
Eric
Monet.
Monet. He had the hips.
Coming to America today. Oh man.
Do you think he travels and does that like just all over, or was it just a Branson thing? I mean, like, is that?
He's
his
got to be a
thing?
cruise line kind of like, hey,
Oh,
this
yeah.
is the gig during this part, right? We went to Dixie Stampede. Do you remember?
I got to go out.
You
on
went
the
out
thing.
on the Dixie Stampede.
I wasn't very good, but I got to go out. And the whole time I'm there, I'm like, I was wearing flip flops. I'm thinking, there's horse poop in this, and I'm just walking around.
And they're
then
thinking, hey, this is someone who's not a liability because they're under 73. And
no hips will be broken.
right? Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And we didn't know each other at all.
Not really.
Do you remember we read Song of Solomon to each other? Like we had no clue what we were doing.
No.
Like that. You're reading this and you're like, I just don't get how this is sexual. It wasn't.
No, not that point. Yeah. And
But at this point, no, still not.
I remember we would sit through timeshare spiels to
Yeah.
get free tickets.
Free tickets because we were
Poor.
really poor.
Yeah.
And then we came home and we found out we were living together.
Yeah.
Which, if that's not your reality, like, may I encourage you. Get married, then live together. But I think a lot of people try to like feel out if the relationship will work.
Yeah.
I would say we were completely different than that plan. We found ourselves sharing heart and soul from distance, engaged from a distance, and then married. And all of a sudden, here we are.
I don't know what to do with you.
I had no idea what to do with you.
Yeah.
And like every day you were still there, like wild and good, but our interests we're so polar opposite.
Do you think they still are? Or do you think that that's changed a little bit? Like if someone asks you what you want to do.
Okay.
I don't know, maybe
Have you
it's
ever
not-
heard like people who are married and grow old together end up looking like each
Yes.
other? Yeah. I think that's true of interests.
Yeah.
I just think like I love you so much
Yep.
that what you care about, I it's like a magnet. I
Yeah.
start to care about it.
Yep.
That was not how it started.
No.
Opposites definitely repelled. Because there were so many things where looking back, I'm like, I cannot believe how many times I hurt your feelings. Whereas now I would never say that. I would never
Right.
do that. And yeah, I didn't know who I was when we got married.
Who does?
That
I didn't.
And I think that was one of the big lessons.
Right.
As you and I were even kind of talking, you're like, over the last few years, 20 plus years, like we've learned a ton. We talk about it all the time. Like we were in counseling. We were in pre-engagement. How many of you have gotten counseling for your relationship and you're not even engaged? These two right here.
Yeah.
And yet you and I were talking about just, oh, wow. The last few years, as we've continued to know ourselves, it has paid dividends on end to how we connect, how we are even able to create allowance for one another. What are some things that you have discovered along the way that have helped you know you? Or like what part, like, I mean, I know my shoe size, although I didn't. I was living for years with the wrong shoe size and wondering why my feet hurt all the time.
Well, you have two different sized feet, like quite a bit. So that,
That's not for public. No, put that in the show notes. But like, I think there's ways where people like, well, I know my style. I know my preference. That's not what you're talking about.
No. I think honestly, I a couple weeks ago we were talking about this, and I said I wish I would have known myself better. But I think really as we're talking about it more again, I think more it's I wish I would have known how my brokenness influences why I do what I do.
How your brokenness impacts why you do what you do.
Or like why I hear, like I feel like you're saying X, Y, and Z in my head, but that's not really what you're saying.
No, we should really help people know how to fight because we've gotten really good.
We have.
We're like professional.
Although don't say that because then I feel like when you say things.
We don't fight really.
Yeah, no, but.
We used to.
Yeah, we did.
We hurt each other's feelings. And I think it came from a plethora of different things. But I do think one of the things was my expectations were put on you because of hurts. And so.
Well, like I said, if you don't actually hear what's being said, then you interpret it with your own brokenness.
Okay, so I got you here, and this is already so much fun, and it's fun with Pastor Derek and Pastor Craig.
But you're not married to them, so it's different.
It is different. Yeah. And so play counselor for me. Like, as you look at me, what are some of the childhood wounds or the wounds that have become narratives that now that I'm aware of them? Because honestly, here's the truth. Like, as she'll say, like, I think it's because of this. And I'm like, it is. And like, you just have a way of thinking about things that I don't slow down to do.
Well,
and
yes
then
and
I
no.
do.
It's a lot easier to think about someone else than it is to think about yourself.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
I feel like it's easier to like acknowledge or see things in someone else. Than,
Okay. So back to the question. What are all my issues?
Well, I don't.
This should be show notes.
Yeah, no. I don't know about that. I do think I've noticed that I guess I don't know how, like.
You can go.
Okay. I think you have a dialogue in your head that says that you're not smart.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lie. I think that's quite ridiculous. Yeah, I think you're one of the smartest people I know. But I think
gushing. I didn't know this was going to turn into this. This is good.
Are you words of affirmation?
I am.
A love language, yeah.
My love language when we got married was touch. And what did I tell you? Like, it's changed. Gifts.
Food and
just give me stuff. I'll feel so loved.
Yeah. But back to the smart thing.
Okay.
I think part of it was growing up. I think that your brain still works differently. And I think that's a really good thing. But I think in school, I think it wasn't applauded. It was harder. I think it was a different generation. I mean, we're old enough now that people didn't understand.
Yeah. Pre-COVID, different generation.
Yeah. The 20th century.
Yes. Oh man, when I go back for the soccer alumni game and they're like, from the graduating class of 2013,
15,
from
yeah.
the graduating class of 1990. You're like, oh my goodness. But
Anyway, I think you were shamed and talked down to and kind of made to believe you weren't like everybody else and succeeding. You didn't have the grades. And so I think that became a dialogue in your
yeah.
head.
And I think it caused me to actually just kind of shrink back from ever really actually trying, even though there was a hope and a dream that I could actually. Okay, now that's what we've learned about me. What have we learned about you? What?
I'm trying to think how to succinctly put it. Something I have learned about myself is because there were things going on in my world when I was little, I started to believe that my voice or my presence didn't matter, or it was going to be easier if I didn't make waves or
keep the
the peace. Yeah, and so that has translated for me as a stay-at-home mom. It looks like really giving and kind and loving, but really it's just I want to do everything I can to let everyone have what they need when they need it, so that I don't.
We have a word for that.
Enabling.
Yes.
Yes.
That's the word.
And I think it's not because I love them so very much. It's because I don't want to be bothered later in the day.
There's some wisdom in that too, though.
Oh, for sure. But I guess when I start thinking about all the things that I do and the way I don't know. I just think.
Yeah.
So let me. It's not a very good example. I don't know.
It's fine. I think I want to reset for those of you who are just kind of trying to follow this. What is super helpful is to know what are your wounds. What are the things that have marked you in such a way that it leads to you operating in certain ways. And as you and I both we could go on and on and on. And it's not just all the negative.
Right.
But it has played a role where I think our marriage continues to get stronger as we know more about who we are and where we came from. And I mean, I think it was a Tim Keller book that we read at one point that talked about your spouse actually reveals you, it's the
mirror thing,
the full length mirror. What can you help unpack what that statement is, what that was?
Well, I think, and partly it was because we didn't know each other all that well, but it felt like, you look at this little mirror when you're dating, you present little bits of yourself, or I don't know, you want to put your best foot forward, that sort of thing. And then you get married and kind of like what you said earlier, I was just there all the time, just always. And so I think you start seeing the fullness of the other person. Just more it gets revealed. You understand each other more, and you're spending a lot more time together. And so, you just see. Okay,
so some people would say and some of the stuff they kept hidden, I don't like, or some of the stuff that that I now know is annoying. Let's talk about the time you confronted me when I was being super annoying, and I thought I was actually being super helpful when it came to a toothbrush. Yeah.
You would brush your teeth? Which
humans
is lovely.
do.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a good trait.
We should already just be applauding.
You're winning. Yep, you're winning. So you'd brush your teeth and you'd take the toothbrush and toothpaste and put it.
Not the toothpaste.
No, you're right.
Come on. Let's full integrity here.
You're right. Just a toothbrush, and you'd put it with the toothbrush.
Here's the sink.
And you'd put it on the edge with the head of the toothbrush. Just
lean over because it's what?
Wet.
And so then it would drop in. And I thought that's what you do. And then you approached me one day, and you said, "Hey."
I don't remember the exact words. Here's in my in revisionist history what I felt like it went but
revisionist history.
There was two of us there, so
okay.
I was just is there a reason that you leave the toothbrush out like that? Because I find it annoying. But maybe you have a reason.
And inside you were
I had bad thoughts about you every time I saw that toothbrush.
Every time.
It was annoying. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That's so stereotypical
and the thing about this, for me,
you didn't know.
I thought it was being no
really?
one wants to put a wet toothbrush in the drawer, right? And so, I mean, this just was so revealing of I thought I was doing right, and then the soft heart component of like you picking the right time with the right tone, with the right question allowed me to kind of share. And then you just quickly went to, yeah, it's actually quite annoying. And so then I quit doing that.
Yeah.
I wonder how many little things get poked at the wrong time,
Right.
in the wrong way, with the wrong tone, that create ongoing hurt, ongoing disruption. And so what could people do to kind of like bring up the annoyances? Because good grief,
Right.
they're real.
Right.
They happen. And I think that we have this myth of just like, hey, we're going to be happily. And it's like, well, no, we actually like trudge through hard things and it's joy-filled.
Right.
And
I don't know. I think one part of that was like, I didn't even realize, I mean, this is going to sound silly. I didn't even realize how much it annoyed me.
how many bad thoughts you had about your husband?
I mean, kind of seriously. But I think what I was going to say was, I think it's important to sit and reflect, like, but how bad is this really? Like, I knew it was just an annoyance.
Right.
Like, it wasn't making me question, like, I don't know, anything about who you were or, you know.
Right.
And so not to play, like, there are things that, so but I think it's good to acknowledge, like, where are we on the scale here?
I
Like, is
agree.
this
I was going to
something-
say there's some things that like
Yes, for
that,
sure.
That actually was a compromise of trust. That was a compromise. This
Right.
was not a trust issue, not a faithful issue,
No.
not an addiction issue.
Right.
And those are real. I don't want to like kind of like how easy. I remember a friend of ours who's said like, I just don't understand you. You are up on stage teaching, and your fight with your wife is how to make a hot dog. Ours is just another level of which we have a great hot dog. Like the
Fight story.
yeah,
Yeah.
because you were wrong. I was right.
Who ate faster?
You were right. I was wrong. It's a predominant theme. Man, that one just set me off too.
Well, I think, and so to my point, or I was going to say, I guess, was like kind of know the level of what it is, and then if it's a lower level thing, don't bring it up in a moment of anger of some like. Don't use it as ammo in all of like, well, there's this and you know, like
keep that drawer of all the files of all the things, and you just start throwing stuff.
Well, yeah, don't do that. And I think just pick the right time. But like, I think the reason it made you so angry was there was probably a few things building up there.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's be super practical. Let's just spend a few moments.
Okay.
There were, I think, a number of moments in our first year of marriage that were so good.
Mm-hmm.
I think the first year of marriage, it matters. Because everything else is being built on that first year. And at the same time, that first year of marriage had all kinds of just like, whoa.
There's a lot to get used to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what you and I have kind of come to terms and articulating is in the beginning, we had 5 hurdles that we tripped over super hard that I think most marriages actually struggle with.
At some point.
Yeah. So the first one is communication. The second one is in-laws. The third one is sex. The fourth one is money. And then the fifth one is children. Let's briefly kind of like share a little bit of a helpful hint to like, this hurdle's coming. You're going to communicate, or let's be honest, I communicate and you'd go quiet.
Right.
And that, like, I didn't know what to do with that. So I talked faster and louder. Very persuasive, very helpful.
Very.
But there you and I are. We're in our small group, what we thought, but it was actually a counseling session with Vermeer. I think
Oh,
Vermeer.
yeah. It was, I mean, yeah.
It
You're
was
right.
therapy
You're
for
right.
us. And there was a practice that he gave us that was absolutely elementary. And yet, if you just admitted, like, well, that's the state of our relationship, it needs elementary help.
Yeah.
We are not able to talk sophisticated because we're too selfish.
Is this a sharing the floor thing?
Yes.
It's really easy, but it's really hard when you have not practiced it.
Okay, so
Yeah.
go ahead, walk them through. This is called sharing
Sharing the floor.
the floor.
And I think actually didn't we actually have a little piece of flooring?
Yes.
That we had to hold, which that
Yeah.
fell a little bit over the top, but
I'm
it worked.
telling you, it worked. So the idea was the only person who could talk was the person holding the floor. Already, some of you are like, I'm just telling you. We hated it too until it became the best way for us to, argue, but like move through
Well,
hurt.
it
move
was
through-
argue, and then it switched into
Yeah.
communication. Yeah.
Okay, so we disagree. We're like frustrated by something, and so we need to resolve it. This is what most good. When things are well, you don't need help learning how to talk. You do need to learn how to go deeper in your talk. I shared this with someone recently. I said most conversations with their spouse are surface and facts. What's the weather like? What you do today? What are we going to eat? You could have that conversation with anyone. It's not moving you closer together. Then you move to emotions. Like, I love it when I hate this, like, and you start attaching feelings to it. But it's when you move to dreams and soul thoughts. If you don't practice that, you're in a perpetual holding tank of relational bonding. And so there's something about like, hey, how do I ask the question? And so if you're dating, you want to be mindful. Like, how do we talk about this without it becoming super? Because this is how you and I dated.
Right.
We shared soul over emails and things like that. And distance physically was the reality. And so like we didn't have a lot of holding hands time or anything like that. Way off topic, but I just want to kind of share like one of the things you can do in your marriage is go like, hey, let's spend a few minutes just talking about what have you been feeling lately about different things. And
I also think too, if that's awkward, put yourself in a spot, put yourself into places that you could like piggyback off of it. So like, honestly, like, I mean, us, we're church, but like going to church and then afterwards, like, hey, what'd you think about?
Yes.
So like, if you don't want to just sit there with like a list of questions and if that feels awkward, like maybe do something or plan something that would create more conversation.
Post movie, I just watched Inside Out Dose not too long ago. Like kind of what back when it came out, and with each daughter, I'm like, hey, what, so, but okay, anyway. Sharing the floor.
Yes.
It's my turn and I'm holding the floor, and I will say like, I just felt super embarrassed, and honestly, like, you just never seemed to be okay with what I'm wearing. Like, you're just like, I can't believe you're wearing that shirt again. And it's, and so like, it just makes me feel really small, and I'm frustrated, and I can't believe you would do that in public on the podcast. Okay. Then I would hand you the floor, and you would repeat back.
Well, do you want me to do it the right way or the wrong way?
Well, do it how you used to do it, which is
apparently was wrong.
Always the wrong way. This is what she would say. She's just like, I was just making a comment that other people would make. To which I'd be like, give me that floor back. That is not what I said. What I said was, you hurt my feelings because of how you shared about this. And then she would take the floor back. This is going back, way back in the beginning when we were first married. And she would say, well, you're just jealous because, and I'd be like, what? And so it would go like round 3, round 4, round 5. And then finally she's like, I hear you saying that you were hurt by my comment about your, and I'm like, well, now you're saying exactly what I'm saying, but you don't mean it. And so we would finally get to a point where this is the key. Like, I have the floor and I share my feelings or thoughts about the situation. She shares what she heard me say. She says,
not my thoughts about it.
Not your thoughts. And then she hands it back. And if I don't feel like she was hearing what I thought, I go, no, that's not what I was saying. And I say it again. And until I feel heard, it's still in my court.
I will say, Sue, sometimes that exercise, even just you sharing, you do have to do it a few times just to kind of whittle down to like, no, really, what was bothering me about it? It's not like,
And I'm more of an outward processor. You're more of an inward processor. But once I go, I feel heard. Then it's her turn to share like, but we talked about this yesterday, ... And you knew that. And I'm like, but I don't want to talk about what I knew. I want to talk about how, right? And so it goes back and forth. And I'm telling you, we might not agree. But feeling heard is massive to healthy communication.
Yeah.
And it moved us way forward.
Because it gets you on the same team again. Like, I'm okay with being wrong, or I'm okay with not getting my way if we're on the same team.
Right. And we've learned, like, do we talk about this now? Do we talk about this later? Do we talk
Are
like
we good enough to be able to kind of get through?
right? Do we put this on the shelf?
Yeah.
Like, and sometimes I'm like, okay, we're gonna just do it your way, and we'll talk about it later. Sometimes we'll do it. Okay, it's communication.
Huge.
In-laws. I love the image of your background has created a river, and the more similar your backgrounds, the more seamless those two rivers. Like you have a stream, I have a stream, and when we get married, like they connect. But the more opposite they are, like if you have two rivers that are like meeting up to form one, it can be like. So you grew up, your dad had a number of health issues, which caused your mom to kind of take over certain home functions and
realities. And
I mean, primary breadwinner and things like that. In my home, my dad like kind of played a role that your mom was playing. And so I came into marriage going like, well, this is how we do it. And you came into marriage like, well, this is how we do it. And like, then we came in, it was on. So in-laws, talk to the people who might be dating or right. Because like some of you, you're like, oh, I know. You've already come up with your ways of like coping or things like that. I just moved mine into the backyard. It was way easier.
Great.
What would you give advice of like, what are some questions or things to be mindful of on people's, where they've come from, right? Because you can't change where someone's came from.
Right. I mean, as important as where you've come from or would be just your own ability to then like reflect or know your thoughts about where you came from.
Yeah.
So like once we recognized that was our reality and that it was influencing the way we thought how things should go, we were able to converse of like, okay, well, I don't know. It just made it easier to talk about it. And so I think hearing your spouse's thoughts about how they were brought up, number one, gives you like more grace and understanding and knowledge about them.
Great questions to ask.
But then also like you can understand like, you know, like a man shall leave his father and mother and cleave to his wife. And so like, where's your spouse in that leaving process from their stream of...
And I think there's the dance of like, I want my family to have influence in my decisions. Sure. And I also need to like recognize that's not the only way to make a hot dog.
Right.
Karen Schmidt did a great job.
She did.
But your way is better. And I'm
maybe she didn't have a microwave. Did she have a microwave?
Yes, we just didn't do it that way. And so I think the in-laws thing, there's such a wide spectrum of it. You just got to be mindful of it.
I think the level of unhealth is different too. I mean, if it's just differences, that's one thing. If it's like unhealth and there needs to be boundaries, you'll run into a lot more, I think, of the conversations.
For sure.
But I do just think as a starting point, how are each of you?
And we just went to a wedding. We got a couple more weddings. What I find interesting is the in-laws come up at holidays, at gift giving. And so one of the things I would say is like, growing up, was birthday a big deal or not? Was Christmas a big deal or
like
not?
how you celebrate it?
Right. Like, and just like knowing like, I mean, cause you did birthdays way different than I did birthdays and like just trying to figure out like, how do we make that dance? Let's go to the sex. Okay. I'm just gonna be honest. When we first were married, I wanted to all the time. You.
It was, well, so I was raised in like an environment, not just my home, but like in my whole environment where like, as a Christian, you didn't.
Yes, it was wrong.
And
Naughty.
then you get married and it's supposed to just be fine and good and great. And that purity culture thing kind of messed with me.
Yeah.
A lot.
And so,
yeah.
So there was that, which caused a lot of hurt.
Yep.
And back and forth. And then I decided to do a series called Sexy Sundays. Oh man, if someone could dig up that in the archives, put it in the dumpster. But I started like talking about it, and we actually came up with a number of questions, just talking back and forth. We did Q&A on the stage. You were pregnant at the time.
We read some of the same books too, and then talked about, you know, just our perspectives and thoughts on
right.
what we were
And we
reading.
stumbled on, and I don't know if it's from a book or from somewhere, but one of the things that was most helpful for me in this, like, I want to, and like, you had a headache or you didn't want to.
Or 3 kids.
Or 3 kids or 4 kids.
Yeah.
Was me being allowed to ask the question, if not now, when?
Mm-hmm.
And you could say in 3 days, I am content for 72 hours. You could like there was
But
like
not 73.
not 73. And I would say like just that element of hope and like kind of clarity
Maybe less of a rejection.
for sure.
Yeah.
Because then I could make allowance.
Yeah.
Hurt would actually compound though if it was how about tomorrow and then like how about the next tomorrow. Then it felt like, and so I would just say like if there's lots we could say about that. Just one opportunity is for maybe some of you asking the question, if not now, when? And that helped us get over that hurdle.
Yeah. I would say the other thing, because I think it's important that a married couple's journey in that is their own. And I think it's super important to protect that. But one other thing that I think that we have this misconception that like before marriage, it just feels like it would happen so easily because that's what you're wanting. And then you get married and it's like, no, you have to like actually, it doesn't just happen when you lay in bed.
Right.
I mean, like it
does.
It does.
But
sometimes, but it doesn't. Like you just need to be able to talk about it more.
Yeah.
And not in like not in a derogatory way or like in a, I don't know, like I deserve it type of way, but just like an open discussion about it.
Yeah.
I think it's really helpful.
I'm trying to remember the name of the small groups that were like marriage groups, like Grace Marriage or something like that. But they said like there's fast food, there's
to describe sex.
Yeah.
And
just knowing even like what's the menu tonight, like there's gourmet. And I'm just, but if you're not married, all of this is a little too much. But if you are married, I think there's just ways where like this can be very painful, and learning how to talk about it, getting ideas of like what questions to ask can help you navigate. But again, your home should be your home.
Right.
And this isn't like work talk, shop talk kind of thing. And we had a whole talk about that. Let's wrap this up. We've got money. We tripped over that hurdle because we didn't have any.
I don't think that was it.
Okay, tell us what it was.
I know what it was. I thought about it differently.
How'd you think about it?
I didn't.
How'd I think about it?
You did.
And who was in charge of it at first?
Well, you were, and like this is a really good thing. It was filtered through very kingdom mindset.
Oh, we had 2 money talks then. Yeah, because
yes. But
the first hurdle was when you didn't pay the credit card bill, and I about lost my mind because that never happened before. And you're like, well, I am a full-time student, blah, 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 blah. Good stuff. And I had zero empathy. And it was one of those like, oh, looking back, I'm like, oh, how I wish I would have handled that different. The other one I wish I would have handled different is I would be playing PlayStation, which I don't do anymore. I was younger then, and you would be looking at a magazine.
Yeah, they actually came to your house.
Right.
You were
It wasn't a phone.
No.
And you'd be like, oh, this is cute. I like this. And I'd be like, not even turn. I would go, can't afford it. Like, and it caused so much hurt. And so out of that, we learned how to talk about money.
Yeah. You make it like you were the only one making mistakes. I just didn't think about it, which
It was a total mistake.
Yeah.
It's fine. But I think like now we try to move to Monday money meeting where like 60% on that.
Yeah. When it happens, it's really helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I could have it every day. Like I like really numbers. Not so much you.
No, it's like you say, do you want to talk about the budget? And I don't have good words go through my brain.
Yeah. Let's keep that off. We'll edit that out. Last hurdle, kiddos, go back and listen to our parenting in the 21st century. That's us. If we could do it again, we would have done a lot more of that.
Sure.
Amazing. I want to do this again.
Okay.
You?
Yeah.
You like we didn't even get into the Enneagram.
I know. There's so much.
So much. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you around.